Every human life begins with sound. Before ambition, before success, before failure, there is noise, not the noise of traffic or voices or machines, but the quieter, more dangerous noise that lives inside the mind, the kind you cannot escape by closing your ears, the kind that follows you into silence, into sleep, into moments when you are supposed to feel peace. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet touch the ground, your mind is already running, replaying yesterday, predicting tomorrow, judging today before it even begins. Thoughts pile on top of thoughts, forming a weight you carry without realizing how heavy it has become. This is where most people live, not fully present, not fully aware, just surviving inside their own head. The mind jumps from worry to regret, from hope to doubt, from confidence to fear, sometimes all within the same minute. You try to focus, but distractions pull you apart. You try to rest, but your thoughts refuse to slow down. Even in quiet moments, the mind creates its own storms, and slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that this chaos is normal. You tell yourself, this is just how life is. You tell yourself, everyone feels this way. You tell yourself, I'll deal with it later, but later never comes. Instead, the noise grows louder. It shapes how you see yourself. It shapes what you believe you deserve. It shapes the limits you place on your own life. A noisy mind becomes a tired mind. A tired mind becomes a weak mind. And a weak mind begins to surrender without ever realizing it has done so. This is the silent crisis no one talks about. People train their bodies, polish their appearance, chase money, chase validation, but they never train the one thing controlling all of it, their mind. And so the mind runs wild, untrained, undisciplined, unprotected, like a city without laws, where every thought enters freely, whether it builds or destroys. Negative thoughts walk in without resistance. Fear sets up a home. Doubt becomes a permanent resident, and slowly your mind stops being a tool and becomes a prison. You feel stuck, but you can't explain why. You feel tired even when you've rested. You feel behind even when you're trying. The truth is not that life is unfair. The truth is that your mind has never been taught how to rest, how to focus, how to obey you. From childhood, you were told what to think, but never how. You were told what success looks like, but never how to build the inner strength required to reach it. You were taught to follow rules, but never how to control your own thoughts. So your mind learned from repetition. It learned fear from fear. It learned doubt from doubt. It learned distraction from distraction. And now, as an adult, you wonder why peace feels so distant. But here is the turning point, quiet, simple, and powerful. You are not broken, you are untrained. And untrained things can be trained. The moment you realize this, the story changes. Because the mind is not your enemy, it is your most powerful ally when guided correctly. Most people think their thoughts are who they are. They believe every fear, every doubt, every negative sentence that appears in their head. They mistake mental noise for truth. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are habits, and habits can be changed. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one listening to it. That realization alone creates space. Space between stimulus and response. Space between emotion and action. Space between who you are and who you could become. A trained mind begins with awareness. Awareness of what you allow to live inside you. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every emotion deserves control. Not every fear deserves belief. Yet most people surrender automatically. They feel anxious, so they obey anxiety. They feel lazy, so they obey laziness. They feel afraid, so they obey fear. And obedience shapes identity. If you obey weakness long enough, it becomes who you are. But if you obey discipline, clarity and intention, even when it feels uncomfortable, the mind begins to change its behavior. It begins to listen. At first, the mind will resist. It will argue. It will fight back. It will say, "This is too hard." It will say, "You've tried before." It will say, "Why bother?" That resistance is not failure. It is proof that change has begun, because the mind only resists when it is being challenged. Training the mind is not about silencing thoughts. That is a myth. Thoughts will always come. The goal is not silence, it is control. Control over what you feed, control over what you repeat, control over what you act upon. Just like the body grows stronger through resistance, the mind grows stronger through intentional effort. At first, it feels exhausting. You notice how often your thoughts wander. You notice how negative your inner voice can be. You notice how quickly emotion takes control. This awareness can feel overwhelming, but it is necessary. You cannot change what you refuse to see. And once you see it clearly, something incredible happens. You stop blaming the world for what your mind has been doing. You stop saying, "Life is against me," and begin asking, "What am I allowing inside my mind?" This is where responsibility begins, not the heavy kind that crushes you, but the empowering kind that frees you. Because if your mind created the chaos, your mind can create clarity. Slowly, patiently, daily, a trained mind does not appear overnight. It is built through small decisions that no one applauds, choosing focus when distraction is easier, choosing calm when anger feels justified, choosing discipline when comfort is tempting. Most people underestimate how powerful these small moments are. But these moments are everything. They are where identity is shaped. A noisy mind keeps you reactive. A trained mind makes you deliberate. Reactive people live controlled by circumstances. Deliberate people live guided by values. And this difference changes everything. A trained mind does not panic when things go wrong. It observes, it adapts, it responds. It understands that emotions are temporary, but decisions have consequences. This is why mental training matters more than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Mental strength stays. When the mind is trained, you don't need constant inspiration. You move forward even when you don't feel like it. You continue even when progress is slow. You remain steady when others collapse, not because you are special, but because you practiced, and practice compounds. The noise does not disappear all at once. It fades gradually. Thoughts slow down. Reactions soften. Focus sharpens. You begin to feel something unfamiliar. Clarity, not the absence of problems, but the presence of control. You realize that peace is not found by escaping life. It is built by mastering your inner world. And this is only the beginning. Because once the mind begins to listen, once it begins to trust your leadership, once it learns discipline instead of chaos, your entire life starts to move differently. This chapter is not about fixing everything. It is about waking up. Waking up to the truth that your greatest struggle is not outside you, and your greatest power is not outside you either. It has been with you all along, waiting to be trained. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it is harsh. They think it is force. They think it is punishment. So they avoid it. They chase motivation instead. They wait for the surge of energy, the spark of excitement, the emotional high that makes action feel easy. And when that feeling fades, as it always does, they stop. This cycle repeats quietly year after year. Plans are made with enthusiasm, goals are spoken with confidence, promises are whispered to the future, and then nothing changes. Not because people are incapable, but because they rely on a feeling that was never meant to last. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on mood. Discipline depends on decision. A trained mind understands this difference early. An untrained mind learns it the hard way. Discipline does not announce itself. It does not arrive with music or fireworks. It does not feel exciting. In fact, most of the time it feels boring, repetitive, and uncomfortable, and that is exactly why it works. Discipline is quiet. It shows up when no one is watching. It works when there is no applause. It continues when quitting would be easier. You do not feel disciplined. You act disciplined, and action reshapes the mind. Most people wait to feel ready before they begin. They want confidence before action, clarity before effort, certainty before commitment. But readiness is not something you feel. It is something you build. Confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result of repeated action. Every disciplined choice, no matter how small, sends a message to your mind. It says, you can trust me. It says, I do what I say. It says, I am in control. And trust changes everything. An undisciplined mind negotiates constantly. Just this once. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. These thoughts sound harmless. They feel reasonable. But repeated often enough, they teach the mind that comfort is more important than progress. Discipline interrupts this pattern. It does not argue with emotion. It does not seek permission. It simply acts. You wake up and move even when tired. You work even when bored. You continue even when results are invisible. At first the mind rebels. It complains, it resists. It feels heavy. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are doing something new. The mind hates unfamiliar effort. It prefers what it knows, even if what it knows is harmful. Comfort feels safe, even when it leads nowhere. Discipline introduces discomfort with purpose, and purpose gives discomfort meaning. A disciplined mind begins to separate feelings from actions. It learns that emotions are temporary signals, not commands. You can feel tired and still move forward. You can feel afraid and still act. You can feel unmotivated and still work. This realization is powerful, because once you stop waiting for feelings to align, progress becomes inevitable. The disciplined mind understands something most people never learn. You do not rise to discipline. You fall to your routines, and routines are built through repetition, not inspiration. Day after day, choice after choice. No drama, no excuses, just quiet consistency. This is why discipline transforms people slowly but permanently. Motivation changes your mood. Discipline changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who or tries. You become someone who does, and doing rewires the brain. The mind begins to adapt to structure. It becomes calmer, more focused, more resilient. Chaos fades as predictability increases. Confidence grows because you know you will show up, regardless of how you feel. This kind of confidence cannot be shaken easily. It does not depend on success. It does not collapse under failure. It does not vanish under pressure, because it is built on evidence. Evidence that you keep going. Discipline also teaches patience. In a world addicted to instant results, discipline accepts delay. It understands that growth is invisible before it becomes obvious. The disciplined mind does not ask, is this working yet? It asks, did I show up today? And that question is enough. Over time, something subtle happens. You stop fighting yourself. Your mind stops arguing because it learns that resistance is pointless. You act anyway. The internal noise quiets down. Decision-making becomes simpler. You no longer waste energy debating whether to act. You just act. This saves mental energy. This creates momentum. Momentum is not created by intensity. It is created by consistency. Even on low-energy days, even on boring days, especially on hard days. Those are the days that matter most. Discipline on easy days is optional. Discipline on hard days is transformative. And slowly, without announcing itself, discipline changes how you see time. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop rushing growth. You stop comparing timelines. You understand that meaningful change happens in layers. Today's effort builds tomorrow's capacity. Tomorrow's capacity builds next year's freedom. The disciplined mind respects time instead of fighting it. It knows that patience is not passive, it is active endurance. This is why discipline feels lonely sometimes. Not many people will understand why you choose structure over comfort. Not many will notice the small habits you protect. Not many will applaud the effort that happens behind closed doors. But discipline was never meant to impress others. It was meant to build you. And as you continue, you begin to feel something new. Self-respect. Not the loud kind that demands attention, the quiet kind that stands firm. You trust yourself more. You doubt yourself less. You rely on action instead of hope. Discipline becomes less of a struggle and more of a standard. You no longer ask, "Should I do this?" You ask, "What needs to be done?" And then you do it. This is the moment when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. Your actions align with your values, your habits align with your goals, your mind aligns with your direction. This alignment creates peace, not comfort, not ease. Peace. The peace of knowing that you are moving forward, even when progress is slow. The peace of knowing that you are no longer at the mercy of your emotions. The peace of knowing that you are building something solid. Discipline does not make life easy. It makes life intentional. And intention is power. Because when your actions are intentional, your future is no longer accidental. This chapter is not asking you to become extreme. It is asking you to become consistent, not perfect, reliable, not intense, steady. Because discipline is not loud, it does not shout, it whispers. And if you listen long enough, it will change your life. Every person carries a voice inside them. It speaks in quiet moments. It comments when no one else is watching. It judges, encourages, warns, and remembers. For some, that voice is gentle. For many, it is harsh. It reminds you of mistakes you thought you had moved past. It questions your worth when things get difficult. It doubts your abilities right when you need confidence the most. And because it speaks in your own tone, with your own words, you believe it. But the inner voice is not born this way. It is trained from experiences, from repetition, from what you were told and what you told yourself. Every time you failed and repeated the story of failure, the voice learned it. Every time fear stopped you and you accepted it as truth, the voice grew stronger. Every time you compared yourself to others and came up short, the voice took notes, and over time it became automatic. You no longer question it. You no longer challenge it. You simply obey. This is where most limitation lives, not in reality, but in narration. The story you tell yourself becomes the reality you experience. The untrained mind believes every thought it produces. It treats internal dialogue as evidence instead of habit. But a trained mind understands something critical. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every sentence in your head is true. Not every feeling is a command. The inner voice is powerful because it repeats, and repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates acceptance. This is why negative self-talk is so dangerous. It does not need to be loud to be destructive. It only needs to be constant. You're not good enough. You always mess this up. This is who you are. These thoughts don't arrive as attacks. They arrive as conclusions. And once accepted, they quietly shape decisions. You stop trying before you fail. You lower expectations to avoid disappointment. You stay in situations that limit you because leaving feels risky. Not because you lack ability, but because your inner voice has convinced you that safety is better than growth. Rewriting that voice does not mean pretending everything is fine. It does not mean blind positivity. It does not mean lying to yourself. It means learning to speak to yourself with intention. A trained mind replaces self-attack with self-direction. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," it asks, "What's the next step?" Instead of saying, "I'm weak," it says, "I'm learning strength." Instead of saying, "I failed," it says, "I gained information." This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Because language shapes perception, and perception shapes behavior. The mind listens to what it hears most often, especially when that voice is yours. At first, challenging the inner voice feels unnatural. The old patterns resist change. The mind will argue back. "You're just making excuses. This is fake. You know the truth." But remember, the old voice feels real because it is familiar, not because it is accurate. Familiarity is not truth, and growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. The trained mind does not silence the inner critic, it reframes it. Criticism becomes feedback, doubt becomes caution, not paralysis. Fear becomes awareness, not avoidance. You stop letting the inner voice define your limits. Instead, you let it inform your decisions. This is leadership of the self. Most people let their inner voice lead them into hesitation. A trained mind leads that voice toward clarity. This requires consistency. You cannot change years of mental conditioning with one good day. You change it by interrupting the pattern repeatedly. Every time the voice says, "You're not ready," and you act anyway, the voice weakens. Every time it says, "This is too hard," and you continue, it loses authority. Every time it predicts failure and you survive, it learns restraint. Over time, the tone shifts. The voice becomes less cruel, less absolute, less controlling. You begin to notice pauses between thoughts. You begin to choose responses instead of reacting automatically. This space is where freedom lives. Freedom from impulsive decisions, freedom from emotional spirals, freedom from self-sabotage. The trained mind understands that thoughts are visitors. You can observe them without inviting them to stay. You can acknowledge fear without obeying it. You can feel doubt without feeding it. You can hear criticism without becoming it. This emotional distance does not make you cold. It makes you clear. Clear enough to act with intention instead of impulse. As the inner voice changes, so does your relationship with failure. Failure no longer becomes proof of inadequacy. It becomes a temporary event. You stop saying, "I am a failure." You start saying, "This didn't work." That distinction protects momentum. Identity-based criticism paralyzes. Behavior-based reflection improves. A trained mind never attacks identity. It focuses on behavior, effort, and strategy. This is why mentally strong people recover faster. They do not waste energy hating themselves. They invest energy adjusting their approach. And with time, something unexpected happens. The inner voice becomes an ally. It reminds you to stay focused. It encourages patience. It reinforces discipline, not through hype, but through clarity. You begin to trust your thoughts because you trained them. You feel calmer because your mind is no longer constantly attacking itself. You feel stronger because you are no longer fighting an internal war. Peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the absence of unnecessary self-conflict. And that peace creates power, because when the mind is not busy tearing itself down, it has energy to build. This chapter is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming someone aligned. Aligned with truth instead of fear. Aligned with growth instead of comfort. Aligned with direction instead of doubt. Your inner voice will never disappear. But it can become disciplined, it can become supportive, it can become wise. And when it does, you stop surviving your thoughts and start using them. Pain is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people spend their days trying to avoid it. They run from discomfort, hide from struggle, numb emotions, and escape difficulty whenever possible. They believe that a good life is a painless one, but that belief quietly weakens them, because pain is not the enemy. Avoiding pain is. Pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to shape you. But only if you let it teach instead of letting it harden you. Every meaningful transformation carries discomfort. Every strong mind was forged in moments that tested it. Strength is not born in comfort, it is revealed in resistance. Yet when pain arrives, the untrained mind panics. It asks, "Why me?" It asks, "What did I do wrong?" It asks, "When will this stop?" And those questions drain energy. A trained mind asks something different. What is this here to teach me? How do I grow from this? What strength is being developed right now? This shift changes the experience of pain entirely. Pain does not disappear, but it loses its power to break you. Struggle exposes truth. It shows you where you are attached. It shows you where you are afraid. It shows you where you still rely on comfort instead of courage. Without pain, these weaknesses remain hidden, and hidden weaknesses control lives silently. The untrained mind treats pain as proof of failure. It personalizes hardship and turns it into identity. I'm unlucky. I'm not meant for this. This always happens to me. But pain is not a verdict. It is information. It tells you where to adapt, where to strengthen, where to let go. A trained mind understands that pain is temporary, but the lesson can be permanent. This understanding creates resilience. Resilience is not emotional numbness. It is emotional endurance. It is the ability to feel deeply without collapsing, to struggle without surrendering, to hurt without quitting. This is what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Life will test you, that is guaranteed, but the test is never about pain itself. It is about response. Do you retreat? Do you blame? Do you shut down? Or do you stay present, curious, and steady? The trained mind does not rush to escape discomfort. It learns to sit with it, observe it, and extract meaning from it. This is difficult at first. Pain demands attention. It pulls the mind into reaction. It floods thoughts with urgency and fear. But when you breathe, slow down, and remain aware, pain begins to soften. Not because it vanishes, but because you stop fighting it. Fighting pain multiplies suffering. Accepting pain reduces it. Acceptance does not mean liking the experience. It means recognizing that resistance wastes energy, and energy is precious. When pain becomes a teacher, failure becomes feedback. Loss becomes clarity. Delay becomes preparation. You stop asking for life to be easy. You start asking for strength to handle it. This is maturity of the mind. Pain also teaches patience. In moments of struggle, time feels heavier, progress feels slower, the future feels uncertain. The untrained mind rushes, desperate for relief, but the trained mind understands that endurance builds depth. Some lessons cannot be rushed, some growth cannot be accelerated, some strength only comes through staying present, staying disciplined, staying engaged. This is where many people quit, not because they cannot continue, but because discomfort convinces them that stopping is wisdom. But quitting out of pain is rarely wisdom. It is relief disguised as reason. The trained mind learns to distinguish between rest and retreat. Rest restores. Retreat weakens. You rest to recover, not to escape. Pain also humbles the ego. It reminds you that you are human, that you do not control everything, that certainty is temporary, and humility opens learning. People who never face pain often become rigid. People who endure pain thoughtfully become adaptable. Adaptability is survival. Pain strips away illusion. It removes false confidence and replaces it with earned strength. And that strength is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need validation. It does not collapse under pressure, because it has been tested. When you survive pain without bitterness, something powerful happens. You stop fearing future challenges. You trust yourself, not because you believe nothing bad will happen, but because you know you can handle what does. That trust is priceless. It creates courage without recklessness, confidence without arrogance, calm without avoidance. A trained mind does not seek pain, but it does not fear it either. It understands that pain is part of the contract of growth. Every meaningful path demands something from you: effort, patience, sacrifice. Pain is often the price of becoming, and once you accept that price, the fear of discomfort loses its grip. You stop asking, how do I avoid struggle? You start asking, how do I grow through it? This is when pain stops being personal and starts being purposeful. You begin to see your hardest moments not as punishments, but as preparation. Preparation for wisdom, preparation for leadership, preparation for a stronger version of yourself. This chapter is not asking you to enjoy pain. It is asking you to respect it, to listen to it, to learn from it, to let it shape you instead of scar you. Because the mind that can endure discomfort without breaking becomes unshakable. And once you reach that place, very little can stop you. When you're ready, say 5 and I'll complete the audiobook with Chapter 5, A Life Transformed from Within, bringing everything together into a powerful ending. Transformation is rarely loud. It does not arrive with sudden victories or dramatic announcements. It does not demand attention or ask for recognition. More often, it arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, built from small choices made consistently over time. At first, nothing seems different. You still wake up in the same world. You still face the same responsibilities, the same challenges, the same uncertainties. But something inside you has shifted. You respond instead of reacting. You pause instead of panicking. You choose instead of drifting. And those small differences begin to change everything. The trained mind does not chase perfection. It seeks alignment. Alignment between thoughts and actions. Alignment between values and behavior. Alignment between who you are and who you are becoming. This alignment creates stability. When life becomes unpredictable, your inner world remains steady. When outcomes are uncertain, your effort remains consistent. When emotions fluctuate, your direction stays clear. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. You feel fully, but you are no longer controlled by what you feel. Confidence begins to emerge, not as arrogance, but as trust. Trust in your ability to handle difficulty. Trust in your discipline to show up. Trust in your mind to stay focused when things get uncomfortable. This kind of confidence does not need external approval. It is quiet, grounded, resilient. You stop proving yourself to others and start honoring your own standards. The trained mind understands that progress is not measured only by achievement. It is measured by consistency of character. Are you calmer under pressure than you were before? Are you more disciplined when motivation fades? Are you kinder to yourself while still demanding growth? These are signs of real transformation. You begin to notice that challenges no longer feel like threats. They feel like invitations, opportunities to apply what you've practiced. Your mind no longer collapses at the first sign of resistance. It adapts, it adjusts, it stays present. This presence is powerful. Because when you are present, you see clearly, you make better decisions, you waste less energy fighting reality and more energy shaping it. A trained mind does not expect life to be easy. It expects itself to be capable. That expectation changes how you move through the world. You become more patient, more deliberate, more selective. You stop reacting to every distraction. You stop chasing every opinion. You stop living at the mercy of urgency. Instead, you live by intention. Intentional living creates freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to do what matters. You protect your focus. You respect your energy. You honor your commitments. And in doing so, you build a life that feels grounded rather than rushed. The noise that once filled your mind begins to fade. Not because life became quiet, but because you learned how to listen selectively. You no longer feed every thought. You no longer obey every emotion. You no longer fear every challenge. You choose. This ability to choose calmly, clearly, consistently is the greatest gift of a trained mind. It allows you to face uncertainty without panic. It allows you to pursue goals without desperation. It allows you to rest without guilt. You understand that growth is not a destination. It is a way of living. Every day becomes practice. Practice in patience, practice in discipline, practice in awareness. Some days you move forward, some days you maintain, some days you stumble, and all of it counts. Because the trained mind does not demand perfection. It demands honesty and effort. You stop being at war with yourself. Instead of self-criticism, you use self-correction. Instead of guilt, you use responsibility. Instead of fear, you use preparation. This internal peace creates external strength. People begin to notice something different about you. Not because you speak louder or act bolder, but because you carry yourself with calm certainty. You are not rushed. You are not reactive. You are not easily shaken. And that calm becomes contagious. The world does not change overnight, but your experience of it does. You become someone who can handle more without breaking, someone who can wait without quitting, someone who can work without constant reward. This is mastery, not mastery over others, but mastery over self. And self-mastery is the foundation of every meaningful life. As this audiobook comes to an end, remember this. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your mindset. But a trained mind does not fall easily. It steadies itself, it adapts, it continues. Training your mind is not about control for its own sake. It is about freedom. The freedom to think clearly. The freedom to act intentionally. The freedom to grow without fear. You already have everything you need. The mind that once distracted you can now guide you. The voice that once doubted you can now support you. The pain that once weakened you can now strengthen you. Transformation was never outside you. It was always waiting within. And now, it is yours to protect.